Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm late. I mean, y'all know what it is over here. Happy Thursday. Let me know if you can hear me. On Thursday, had to take a sip. All right. So, welcome to Wine and Chill and our occasional Thursday live. Occasional, as in, this is the second week in a row that we're finally back on schedule. So, we might be back to every Thursday, but I want to be honest. Some Thursdays we're going to miss it. So, it's fine. Also, to fess up, last time I told y'all that I was going to try and drink water for the whole month. I'm drinking water right now, but yes, I did have a few spicy margs this weekend. So, yeah, it's the summer, so trying to cut back sometimes. All right, so how are y'all doing? Okay, let me know if you can hear me. Also, to the first question for type effectiveness, when are these trifling accountants and lawyers going to get done for enabling this behavior? And highlighting this because actually, this is one of the first times that we're seeing the accountant also get convicted. So we are going to hop into it. All right. So we are going to be talking about the Chrisleys. If you're not familiar with the Chrisleys, do not worry. I'm bringing a little snippet of their sass to the screen in approximately 2 seconds. We're going to talk about the charges, and then we're going to talk about potential sentencing, as well as a slew of reality TV's favorite scammers. Okay, let's get into it. All right. So if you are not familiar with Todd and Julie Chrisley, that's fine. I'm going to play a little clip for y'all. Also, because for what it's worth, I'll get into my bias after I play this clip as well.
It's time for us to talk to them about what they're going to be facing out there.
What?
Savannah, no one should travel beyond here to the equator. You understand me?
Have you ever been on spring break?
Chase, I invented spring break.
I don't think you did.
I did.
It's way too much information.
This down here is your gym. You can be all natural. You know that you're not supposed to have sex before marriage.
Oh my God. What are you doing, dude? You need to relax.
I'm going to show you how to properly put on this condom.
Okay, I'm not on this.
Yeah, I'm not even in on this.
Chase, sit down. Chase.
So, a quick snippet. So, for what it's worth, Mr. Chrisley is a very sassy and funny man. And I will say, I did used to watch their show. Is one of my favorite reality families in terms of they're hilarious. However, you know what is interesting to me? I did like his very, I would say, pragmatic approach to, you know what, I'm going to tell y'all not to do these things because he is a Bible thumper. But in case you do these things, this is how you properly, do those things. So with my smidge of bias aside, hold on. We're going to get into these counts. So, hey, Marsha, how are y'all? Very sassy. I think sassy is the best way to describe Todd, and I love it. I love to see it. There's an episode where he dressed up in drag, and it was lovely. He's hilarious, and also along with that hilariousness comes, I would say, maybe a closeted greedy side. So, in 2019, Todd and Julie, who's his wife, Todd is definitely the main character in their marriage. Todd is getting the limelight. Todd is the funnier one. So Todd, Julie, and their accountant were all charged with, actually, I'm in the way, so let me move. All charged with 12 counts of varying levels of tax evasion and fraud. So count 1 was conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Counts 2 through 6 were the actual bank fraud. Count 7, wire fraud conspiracy. Count 8, wire fraud. Count 9, conspiracy to defund the United States. I feel like the United States is defunding us, so that's interesting. Count 10, tax evasion. Count 11, aiding the filing of false tax returns. Count 12, aiding the filing of false tax returns. Yes. So as of today is Thursday, I believe on Tuesday, spoiler alert, we're going to go through it. But on Tuesday, Todd and Julie Chrisley were convicted of tax fraud as well as wire fraud and a little bit of conspiracy, a drop of that, as was their accountant. because one of the interesting things to Type Effectiveness' original question was the lawyers and the accountants usually seem to just sneak off into the background when this happens. The lawyers and the accountants, particularly in these cases when fraud is occurring, are the ones filing the paperwork. So also need to be roped up too as to why they are enabling people and getting kickbacks. Okay, so let's get into this. So originally what occurred, we're going to get into IRS fraud, but first we're going to talk about the bank fraud and what happened before the Chrisleys came onto the scene in television. So they have a show called Chrisley Knows Best, because again, Todd is the main character in their family, about their very funny family. They have a few, now they're in their 20s, but at the time they had a few teenage kids. So it was between Todd, the wife, the teenage kids, the grandma. The grandma was also hilarious. And then eventually their granddaughter. That's what the show centered on. Before they were given this show, because these shows often feature people who are appearing to live a lavish lifestyle. And I say appearing to live because from Bravo, we see with Jen Shaw, which is currently going on, we see with the Girardis, a lot of these people fake it till they make it and are frauding around, allegedly, and then get picked up by these shows, which we could have a separate conversation on whether or not these networks know that these people are frauding, or whether or not these networks kind of have suspicions and basically just don't care because they want reality television. So in terms of back in 2009, many years before Todd and Julie got the show, they allegedly committed bank fraud. So allegedly, and this is only partially alleged now because they have gotten convicted, not on all of the charges, but on some of them. What they did in terms of before they got the show, to say that they had all this money, they went around to various small banks and asked for bank loans. Yes, bank loans to the tune of around $30 million. Now, it reminds me of another scammer who is currently sitting in jail facing deportation, which is Anna Delvey. Anna Delvey, who was approved in part for a $20 million loan, who didn't have a pot to piss in. How these banks are giving people large sums of money without proper documentation, I find very interesting. And we know why. It's always a certain complexion for the loan application. So they went around to these banks. Let me make this bigger. Uh-oh, I think my computer's frozen. Am I back? Okay, I'm back. My internet has been doing this all day. Yes, Jace. It's quite interesting, darling. Quite interesting. So, according to the original indictment, which is from 2019, on or about the dates set forth below in the Northern District of Georgia and elsewhere, the defendants, Todd Chrisley and Julie Chrisley, they did not have to put their names in all caps like this, which is hilarious, aided and abetted by each other and co-conspirator. The co-conspirator is their certified public accountant. And did knowingly, which we'll talk about him a little bit later, and did knowingly attempt to execute the above described scheme to defraud as follows. On June 12, 2009, causing false personal financial statements to be transmitted to Midtown Bank. All of the banks that they targeted, and partially alleged because they are not convicted on all of them, so I'm just going to say alleged throughout, that they targeted were small banks. Because a larger bank, the assumption is a larger bank would have been like, what you need $5 million for? Where do you have this money? You don't have any collateral. I'm not giving it to you. A smaller bank might be a little bit easier to bamboozle, I suppose, was their idea and their accountant's idea. Causing a false personal financial statement to be transmitted to Gulf South Private Bank, causing a false personal financial statement to be transmitted to the United Community Bank. These are all, like, this is not Bank of America. This is not Chase's, Wells Fargo. Oh, joke of the day. I forgot. The last one is trifling Wells Fargo, causing a false personal financial statement to be transmitted to none other than Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo, I'm surprised and I'm not surprised they're on here because they have very interesting and admittedly shady business practices. as we've seen with Wendy Williams, but as we've seen in the numerous times that they've gotten sued and had to reimburse people's monies that they misplaced, which is interesting. Yes, of course. And we were talking about Wells Fargo last week in the live as well, which I still need to transfer my account and I keep forgetting to do. That. So to Roderick's point, Georgia does have a lot of smaller banks. All right. So they went to these banks. They asked for these loans. They got these loans. So now their net worth is looking like, hey, I have all this money. We're living a lavish lifestyle. We love, capitalist Jesus. Their version of Jesus very much loves capitalism. We love capitalist Jesus and we're funny and we're sassy. Insert a few years later, they're on a show. Okay. So simultaneously, when they did this, they also allegedly defrauded the IRS. Now, the IRS is not somebody you want to play with. The IRS keeps immaculate records, shouldn't defraud anyone. Defrauding the IRS is very bold, is giving very big and bold energy. So what I find interesting about this, and also when you cover enough scamming criminal charges and lawsuits, they all sound similar because they're all running a similar or the same game. So the defendants, knowing that Todd Chrisley owed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS for the 2009 tax year, so allegedly they're also not paying their taxes, which is tax evasion, sought to hide his income from the IRS by directing third parties to send millions of dollars to 7 Seas Production. So what did they do? Said, all right, we're going to borrow all this money from these small little banks. We're going to create a production company. We are going to create a holding company that does nothing. Don't worry about it. We're going to figure it out. Even though Todd Chrisley exercised control over 7 Seas Productions and had access to its bank account throughout the conspiracy, his name was never listed as an owner of the documents filed with Georgia or Tennessee Secretaries of State. They lived in both states. They have lived in both states. And he was never a signatory to the bank accounts. But do you guess whose name was on there? Julie's. It's always the wife. They're always putting the wife's name on the documents. Similarly, last year, I think we covered it when we discussed Erica Jane and Tom Girardi. Erica Jane is still most famously on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She is going, and her husband went through a very public divorce. The husband is accused, and at this point, it's pretty much known that he defrauded his clients of millions of dollars. And Erica Jane essentially has profited from that. Part of what's come out of their very long, detailed dragging out of the court trying to solicit some of the money back to give to the victims is that the husband, Tom Girardi, Erica Jane thinks herself a pop star. So the husband created a corporate entity to service her pop star dreams. And in that, I have to cough, hold on. And in that corporate entity funneled a lot of money, to which, when questioned about this, Eric was like, I don't know what my husband does. Like, I'm a pretty housewife. Like, I don't look at those things. Now, if you are smart enough to find someone to bankroll your whole life, I'm pretty sure you're smart enough to read documents. And you know when you are signing said documents, what's in the documents. It's very interesting to see how everyone is running just a similar, to Roderick's point, shell corporation scheme, but always in the wife's name. The husbands are never like, oh, I'm gonna put my name on it. Like, no. If something is happening, I'm putting your name on it. And also because when you are married, you are not allowed to legally be compelled to testify against your spouse. The spouse cannot go on the stand and be like, oh yeah, Todd did it on purpose because I can't test. You can't say any of that, which is very interesting. Very interesting. All right. So we won't go through the rest of it, but that's essentially what it is. Okay. So to bring in the CPA, which is the certified public accountant, he also got roped in because they did not file these documents themselves. The CPA filed them, and the CPA aided and abetted in the scheme. So throughout the conspiracy, Tarantino, that's his last name, provided false and misleading information to the IRS revenue officers who were assigned to collect Todd and Julie Chrisley's back taxes. Tarantino falsely told revenue officers that Todd and Julie Chrisley could not afford to pay their back taxes. You can't afford to pay your taxes, but you living large. Okay. Which is why, just a tangent and a side note, whenever people are of the mindset that social welfare and welfare queens are running around using up our tax money to eat crab legs and nonsense, no. It's a lot of scamming ass rich people using up our tax money because they don't want to pay taxes. That's what is happening. That is the reality of the situation. This is 2022. This occurred in 2009. I graduated high school in 2009. That is so many years ago. Okay. Which, yes, it takes a long time to build a case, but does it take that long? They have allegedly allowed them to do this for over a decade, almost 2 decades. Okay. In one instance, Tarantino falsely told our revenue officer that Todd and Julie Chrisley's daughter was the owner of Seven Seas Production and that she paid Todd and Julie Chrisley their salaries. Not blaming the daughter, just roped all of them in, said, you know what? It's not the wife, it's the child. You know, it's somebody, it's not them. Tarantino sought to impede the IRS's efforts to collect Todd and Julie Chrisley's unpaid taxes. He frequently updated Todd and Julie Chrisley on his interactions with the IRS. For instance, on September 23rd, 2016, Tarantino told Todd and Julie Chrisley, the agent asked me some questions and I forgot what the rest of it said, but it was averted them elsewhere. So it's not funny, but it was funny. One of the interesting things in the original indictment was Todd and Julie Chrisley kept telling the IRS agents, and their accountant kept telling the IRS agents, oh, they don't know how to pay the taxes. You know, they've never run a business before. They're very confused, to which the IRS then sent them a pamphlet on how to pay taxes. How we, the regular degular people, are supposed to figure out our wild tax code, if not, like, we will actually have very swift repercussions, but rich white people are allowed to get pamphlets and be like, okay, fine, you messed it up 1 year. All right, we'll help you 2 years. Okay, you know what? It's fine. We're still going to help you. We're just going to walk you through that. It's all right. No one's upset with you. Miss your taxes and watch what happens. Joke of the day, in what year was that when I graduated? 2016. When I graduated law school, I had like a few jobs until I got like my first full-time legal job. And one of them sent my tax return super late. Like I filed mine very early. And to be honest, I worked there for a month because I had a bunch of contract jobs. I forgot about it. So I filed my tax return. Everything's on there. I kid you not, by July of that year, the IRS sent me a bill and was like, listen, you owe $197. I was like, oh, okay, I got to pay it. They do not care. When you're a regular degular person, they will send you the notice with such a quickness. And the letter was written in such a way like, listen, what are you doing? Which, of course, I paid very immediately because I was terrified. All right. So they had a 3-week trial. The trial just concluded this week. They were found guilty of conspiracy to defraud community banks out of more than $30 million of fraudulent loans. Wow. $30 million. What's left out of what we've been covering so far is not only did they have $30 million of loans that they borrowed to prop up their lifestyle, they filed for bankruptcy. So that way $20 million of the loans could be removed from their record. Like, yeah, I borrowed the money, but you know, I can't pay the money back, so just remove them. They might have changed it. So I would say as of last year, you cannot get your student loans discharged when you file bankruptcy. You can get anything else discharged, them student loans, as of last year. I know there were a few bills out trying to change that. Like, nope, you stuck. That credit card debt, that predatory lending, everything else. Okay, fine. You file bankruptcy, we'll remove it for you. That student loan and that predatory interest, oh no, you're going to pay that. It's wild to me. $30 million is so bold and such a wild amount of money. As much as I think Sassy Todd is hilarious, there's trifling. It's very much giving trifling. It's very much giving greedy. So Peter Tarantino, who is their CPA, he also was found guilty of conspiring to defraud the IRS because he did file the actual tax returns. And what's interesting is the jury found that Todd and Julie Chrisley committed multiple fraud schemes for several years, and their accountant, Peter Tarantino, filed false corporate tax returns on their behalf. This office and our partner agencies will continue to vigorously investigate and prosecute white-collar crimes who flout the law. And while, yes, I do think occasionally, sometimes the federal government does process white-collar crimes, when we get to the actual punishment, they're facing up to 30 years in prison. They are not going to serve even 50% of that, not even a quarter of that, which let's get into. So, which I think they do these cases every once in a while to be like, look, life is fair. We're going after everybody, when they're not really. That's not really what's happening. So I figured we'd go through a list of infamous scammers and their surprisingly short sentences. So yes, Todd and Julie Chrisley are facing 30 years. Their show has been renewed for season 9. If you are a fan of their show, don't worry, the show will be coming back because they have restitution to pay. And also, they're not going to be in jail that long. So most famously, Miss Table Flipper herself, Teresa Giudice, years ago, which I believe what says 2003, 2004, her and her husband were also convicted of conspiracy, bank fraud, and other tax offenses. The husband served 41 months, which is a little bit less than 3 years in jail. And I don't think she served her whole 15 months. I think she ended up serving like a year, like 12 months or something like that. Mind you, they each pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and wire fraud, 1 count of bankruptcy fraud by concealment of assets, 1 count of bankruptcy fraud by false oaths, and 1 count of bankruptcy fraud by false declarations. Now, I'm not sure if they actually learned their lesson. One of the interesting things is all the people we're going to talk about, it's not like they had to pay all that money back, which they should have. They all are still living very much lavish. Of course, how could we forget Martha Stewart? Don't worry, I wasn't going to leave good old Martha out. Martha Stewart, also in 2004, was convicted and she could have served 16 years in prison. However, she only served a whopping 5 months in federal prison and 5 months with her little ankle bracelet at home. And mind you, home is not a normal person, large 2,000 square foot house. Home is a compound, an estate. Martha is now doing just fine, bounced back like nothing happened. Wesley Snipes, similarly, I thought it would be interesting to see if, okay, we all know that systemic racism, usually Black people get longer sentences. When you are rich, those rules apply to you less. Wesley Snipes in 2008 was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and fined for $5 million for not filing and paying $15 million worth of federal income tax returns. I would say his is the most similar to the Chrisleys. He lost his appeal and served about 2.5 years in jail. So all of these rich people, privileged and good lawyers and enough money, you're not really held accountable to having to learn your lesson. Now, what is interesting with this case is whenever there are people who believe in capitalist version of Jesus, they love to remind everyone else, like, I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. And then bring the Lord into it as well. So this is from the original indictment. When the original indictment was posted in August of 2019, Todd then posted this picture of his family. Thank you for all your love and support. Our family will forever be grateful. God bless you all. Now, I don't know why God is always getting called into these things when the greed is pushing people into doing foolishness and nonsense. There is no need to live in a 10, 20,000 square foot home and to have $30 million in bank loans to finance what? Foolishness. To finance absolute foolishness. And to be honest, I do think because Todd is such a likable person and a likable character, he will serve his, I would say no more than 15 months in prison, come back out, and then it'll be just, another one of those reality stars that served time in prison. Which doesn't change the fact of the matter that this issue seems to happen with a certain type of person, and the federal government just seems to allow people to just do it and then be like, okay, just go sit in the prison, for like a couple months. Just sit over there, but not actual restitution of paying back the money. All right. So yeah, that was it for me in this. I think what's on the next one? Oh, this is from I borrowed joke of the day. I borrowed where did I go? I borrowed the same GIFs that we used when we covered Dana Chanel, because scammers deserve the same GIFs. And I love to use Joanne the Scammer GIFs. So yeah, so let's go through the comments. All right. If you're just tuning in now, you could go to the beginning of the video. We're just going through the comments. All right. I love how y'all know I wasn't going to be on time. I appreciate y'all. For context, and in my small little defense, I had 7 meetings today at work. 7. And still had deliverables to do, and apparently Excel spreadsheets to look at, which corporate labor is interesting. Speaking of, is anybody watching the show Severance? It's amazing. I think maybe we'll do a review on that. I know we've never really done a movie review, but it's so good. It's so good. All right. So let's go through the comments. Blue Quartz, how y'all drinking spicy margs? A heartburn. It's so good. Also, like, most of them in New York aren't actually spicy. I've had some that, like, there's actual habanero or Scotch bonnet in there. It's good. It's very good. All right. Yeah, it's the level of hubris and just not caring. If you read through the entire case, they're just like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to go about my business and tell people I love the Lord and I love capitalism and nobody's going to question me. And for over a decade and a half, allegedly they started this in 2009. The indictment is 2019. So for a decade, nobody really asked them anything. Nobody ever wondered, like, where did y'all get this money? Like, what y'all doing over here? Nope. All right. Very fabulous, to be honest, which I had to admit my bias in the beginning. He's very fabulous. Listen, I do enjoy a sassy Southerner. I do. All right. How are you able to read the court documents? They're online. So yeah, I usually just look them up online. Listen, look, don't get me started on Joe, I think, is reneging our student loan for cancellation that he said he was going to do. I knew he wasn't going to do it. Waste man, I swear. Waste man. Todd claims somehow the other guy convinced the government that they were doing fraud. Yes, so Todd's claim is that it's completely the CPA, his certified public accountant's fault, that he did nothing wrong. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, sir. I like you, sir, but I don't believe it. Nope. Because the CPA who signed Julie up to be the the registered agent and the executive of the production company, Todd did. Jonathan, the networks don't care. The network thinking that we can get another season in before these jokers get locked up. Or they'll do like they did with Teresa when she was the first reality star locked up. They just filmed the whole thing. They filmed the whole thing for television. All right. $20 million loan while we get hounded for $10,000 for education. And this is the point. So most of you know that I used to owe Sally, mother effing May. I had a bar study loan when you are in law school afterwards to become a licensed attorney. You have to take the bar exam. The bar exam is very hard. It's only offered twice a year. So of course you want to pass it the first time. Certain jobs, you cannot work there unless you're a licensed attorney. So with that, most people take a bar study course. It's expensive. The course is you need the course to pass. So I took out a $6,000 loan with Sally Mae to pay for the course and then to pay for my living expenses. That loan had 10% interest. When I tell you, when I graduated, Sally Mae called me every day on the day, sometimes multiple times a day about her money, to which me and the Sally Mae customer service reps, god awful people would get into arguments because every time I would tell them when I first graduated, I was like, hey, I don't have a job yet, so I don't know why you're calling me. I don't have any money. I'll call you when I have some money. And they don't care. They will hound you down. They will hound you down over them student loan pennies, which is why I find it very interesting that when you have a certain complexion for a bank loan application, not only are people giving them millions of dollars, people are also not hounding them down. They don't seem pressed to get it back, which is very interesting. All right. Okay. Thank you, Art Norman. Thank you for the super chat. I mean, I wasn't going to say blue quartz, but Wells Fargo's trifling. Listen. Ooh, this is a good question, King Schooler. Have PPP loans been forgiven? From what I've seen, I think the government has started going after people that process fraudulent PPP loans. I've seen like a few cases where people are, I always forget which one it is, Lord. But one of the members of Pretty Ricky I think he started serving his time for that. I always say the wrong one, so I don't know which member it was, but one of them, yes. It's this, because to be honest, this case is tragic and infuriating. Also, because I see more people are popping in. If you just popped in, go to the beginning of the video. We're just going through comments now. It's unnecessary. It's very greedy. It's very, very greedy for no reason. Because he does have a good personality and he's funny, and I would have watched him if they were in a regular house. Like, what was the reason, Todd? What was the reason? And Julie, it's the two of them. It was the two of them. Blue Quartz, if I was the wife, I would have gone on a trip to an unknown destination. She'll serve less time than him. Like, he might serve a year, if that, and she's gonna serve like 5 months, if that. I don't remember what I said, but hopefully it was something sensible. The CPA is the one who did it, the Peter Tarantino, and he's also a convicted felon now as well. Whew. Yes, Jace. I would. If you don't have the complexion for protection, I don't suggest trying this, and I don't suggest trying it, period, ever. This is a bad idea. And it's this. It is this. Exactly. The IRS is very choosy about who they go after and who they bother and who they give the tax refund to in a timely manner. Just a mess. Just a mess. And this is always my question, Brittany J. How do you qualify for that amount without verifying your ability to pay it back? So let's go through, because I always find that interesting. They allegedly defrauded, there's 6 counts, 30 mil. So what's that? 5 mil each, which is a lot of money. $5 million to just walk up to the bank and be like, hey, I have a business proposal for you. I'm starting a business and I need $5 million. There are so many studies that show that most Black people, even when you have a solid business proposal, you have business experience, you have people vouching for you, get denied at significantly higher rates than their white counterparts for business loans. So how you go in and just get $5 million and you just are like, oh, hey, here's some paperwork that says I'm asking you for 5, but I'm worth 3 and I'm good for it, is beyond me. I think what's interesting in these cases, and in the Anna Delvey case was similar because she asked for $20 million from a bank, is why are these banks so quick? Obviously the privilege and all of that, but what are the bank protocols for this? Like, I would be very curious as to like, what is the proper protocol for verifying that somebody has the ability to pay this back? I would be very, very, very curious. Roderick. Yep. Same. When I owed that $197 or what it was, I was terrified. I was like, oh, these people are going to pop up at my house. Like, I make sure to pay. Like, I didn't know. Also, I think what's sad and interesting about our tax system, tax law is so complicated that when I was in law school, they discourage everyone from taking the tax law class, unless you are very good at math you have an accounting background, and for some odd reason, you want to become a tax attorney. And most tax attorneys also get JD is regular, and what do they call Master of Law? An LLM. An LLM is, which when I say this out loud, it's not going to make sense because JD is a doctorate degree, but an LLM is technically like a Master of Law degree. So it's like an extra year or 2 years, depending on the program, and it's higher than a JD. It is truly a waste of money, not worth any money, will do nothing for you unless you want to be a tax attorney. So a lot of the schools, a lot of the law schools have realized that they can get a buck out of people. So they have LLMs and everything. And they're like, it's a way to specialize and differentiate yourself. It has very little to no return on investment. You're going to pay 60 grand to be like, yes, I have an LLM in entertainment law. No, don't do it. But if you want to be a tax attorney, it's very helpful. It's very specific. But you have to, at that point, have gone to college 4 years, 3 years of law school, plus most LLMs are 1 year. So what, that's 7 years plus the extra year, 8 years of school to even understand our tax code in this country, which is wild to me. Every time I file my taxes with TurboTax, which they are now getting sued. So now now that I have Wine and Chill, I finally got an accountant because I was like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, I'm terrified. I'm always terrified because like what happens, like when most people use TurboTax or H&R Block or whatever, what happens if they mess it up? Because you have to sign your name and say that you verify everything. It's like, I guess I told them how much I made. Like, I don't know. I don't know what any of this means. Oh, craziness. All right. It wouldn't surprise me if they give them probation, or if they do go to jail, it's going to be a nice cell. Oh, of course. Like, it's not going to be regular degular. Not going to be regular degular in the at all. They're appealing. Yeah, they're going to get denied. No, they're not about to win that appeal. So they're just going to go dig themselves into more debt and waste more money on the attorney. So, all right. And to the point about Martha Stewart, she became more famous afterwards. Yes, after Martha Stewart came out of prison, she rehabilitated her whole image. She has a whole like thing with Snoop Dogg. That's like her BFF Jill. Martha Stewart now is like a household name to multiple generations. Wild. Yep, exactly. Snoop Dogg gave her credibility with the kids. It was like, oh, this is my friend, you know? He smokes weed and I've been to prison and we're cool. It's like, Martha, please. Stop this. Yes, Lauryn Hill as well. I think Lauryn Hill also served time for not paying her taxes. And this, because why is God in it? God is just there minding their business, and next thing you know, it's like, I did nothing wrong, and God is here with me. I'm sure God is there shaking their head like, greedy. All right. Do y'all want to cover that? So we've covered the January 6th insurrection twice already, and I think we've covered one of the lawsuits. I'm very annoyed about the hearing, to be honest. Like, I feel like they purposely waited so long so that way people would be less interested in it. But if y'all want to cover it, we can definitely cover parts of it. So be interesting. All right. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Yes, I have a mic. Well, not with the lives. The lives, we're gonna update the live setup soon. But with the recorded videos, yeah. But thank you for the super chat. Tax attorneys make a shit ton of money. Yes. It's also a very hard and stressful job. So God bless them. Tax attorneys make a good amount of money. Patent attorneys make a good amount of money. I would say those are very like solid legal jobs if you like those fields. If you don't like those fields, you'd be miserable. But if you like those fields, but yeah. And yes, I agree. All right. Okay, cool. So we've gone through all of it. So good. We have good timing. It's 8 o'clock. I'll send y'all off to dinner, depending on where you are. And yeah, so things coming up. I still owe y'all Roe v. Wade, which we are going to do a recorded video for that because the last time we brought that up, the racists came out, and I don't have the patience for them. So we're gonna cover Roe v. Wade. If you missed it, speaking of alleged scammers, and more of, I would say, a sad video, but also one that requires accountability. We did on Patreon a live on Sunday about BLM and what does accountability look like, and how do we get to the bottom of the foolishness and where $60 million is just floating around in the air. And so here, I'll send y'all the Patreon link. 1 second. It should be in the description box, actually, but I will drop it in here for y'all as well. Here you go. If you wanna, you are a mod, Jace. Speaking of, so we have a few mods. If you want to be a mod, can you let me know and I'll add y'all? Because the last time when that happened, I told you I was going to end up privating the video after like a week. When you private the video, then it removes all the comments. It removes the comments from the chat. So then I lost it. But yeah, so let me know. But yes, if you are joining Patreon, I always recommend join the first week of the month, because the way Patreon subscription works, it charges you when you sign up, and then it will charge you the first after every month. So never, for my channel, anybody's channel, sign up like the last 2 weeks of the month. You're not getting your money's worth. So sounds good. All right. But you want to, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, let me know here, and then we'll talk about that. And then we're going to do this weekend, finally do Colonizer Expose France. And then on the channel, I owe y'all a student loan update video. So yeah, sounds good. Thanks for being on the Patreon, Benjamin. Awesome, Eric. I'll add you as well too. And I'll add y'all. Okay. But yeah, sounds good. So let me know if there are any other topics y'all want to talk about. We can go ahead and cover them. I saw Mariah Carey is getting sued in like what is a very frivolous case. So since there's no teeth to that, I figured like we wouldn't cover it. Yeah. How are you going to sue somebody for a song that has been out all these years, that you have known has been out all these years? Like, that's not how that works. So we'll leave that. But yes. Oh, thank you, Scarlett. I'm glad you're on the Patreon. Yeah, my goal is this summer to get the Patreon up to content for like not each tier once a week, but each tier total will have content on it once a week. So Patreon itself will have content on it once a week. So the $10 is for the lives, and then $2 is like for Patreon, and then like any early release stuff or like any videos that were on YouTube that I take down, like go on Patreon. It doesn't happen often, but in terms of like taking stuff from YouTube. So yeah, sounds good. Well, I hope y'all have a lovely evening and a lovely early weekend. I will catch y'all later on in the week. Bye.